Hey there! Today we're going to talk about a very special ink, because today we'll be talking about this ink. And this ink, you can see it's a sample. This ink is Parker Penman Sapphire. Now, this is an ink that was discontinued in the 2000s, I think. It was made by Parker, and people loved this ink. The reason they loved it was that it shades very well, it's pleasant to use, things like that. But it was discontinued, and a lot of people bought, the final bottles in stores because they loved it so much. And I have to tell you, I never bought that because I wasn't that seriously into fountain pens at that point in time. Now, I received a letter from Bill, and Bill said that he got this sample. It's more than this, don't worry, it was full. He got it from the Fountain Pen Network, and someone had made this there. He had taken the ink from cartridges, added a little bit of distilled water to get the original dilution, and then he sold it. I'm assuming he didn't just give it away. And Bill purchased it, and Bill then gave it to me. Now, I want us to take a minute there to thank Bill for that, because this is an iconic ink, and he could have kept this. I mean, this would fill, 5 milliliters of this would fill multiple pens a couple of times, and you could do a lot of writing with that. But instead, Bill gave it to me so that I could do an Inkcyclopedia entry, and so that this ink is, saved for posterity, because now anyone can check it out and see what this was all about and why this ink was so famous and so well loved. And I think that, wherever you are, if you just look outside and think of all the bad people who are out there doing bad things to other people, I find it a huge comfort, and I'm serious here, that there are people like Bill who think about other people and think about how to make the world a nicer place. And I know he just sent me an ink sample. He didn't invent world peace all of a sudden or something. But it's stuff like this that improves the world. So, that's just what I wanted to say. I think we should have a look at this ink. It is indeed a very nice, dark, vibrant blue. I understand why people love this. One thing I should point out is that Bill also said in his letter, of course, I cannot be really sure this is the genuine article. There's a solution for that. One of my pen friends used the real Penman Sapphire. We're absolutely certain that is Penman Sapphire in some of his letters. And I will show you one of those letters in the writing part of this video. And Bill, I'm pretty sure that this is the genuine article. So, well done, well done. And now, my friends, it is time for some writing. Hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Oh, and thanks, Bill. Okay, so here we go with Parker Penman Sapphire. Let's start with some fine writing. And some medium writing. Then we move to broad. Sapphire. And some metallic. Okay. Finally, I will do some flex writing. I think that what we are seeing so far is that this is a nice, intense, dark blue with some pretty nice shading. You start to see that in the medium nib, but I think you already see that in the fine nib even, that there is some difference between lighter bits and darker bits, which is quite cool. It's very pronounced in this italic writing, for example. You see a lot of color difference there, and in the very wet, broad writing as well. So that's pretty cool. And that is some railroading, which is a little less cool. I shouldn't talk so much, I should just do the writing and not let the pens dry out, probably. I'll just squeeze a drop of ink into the feed of the pen I'm using here. There we go. For some reason this pen and this ink don't really seem to match. Maybe I'm pushing the pen a little too hard. There we go. Okay. How about some passes? 1, 2, 3. Now, is that a beautiful, dark, vibrant blue, or is that a beautiful, dark, vibrant blue? Very intense. I think if you see this, you can picture why so many people were so disappointed when this ink was discontinued. Very intense. This is like a very deep night sky when you start to see the first stars or something. I absolutely love it. Very, very nice. Okay, I think we should do us a couple of tests. The first one should be a little bit of calligraphy. B for blue. And then we have, what should I write today? Okay, so I think we need to wait a little bit before this stuff dries, although this is probably going to dry fairly quickly. This is still a little too wet. This one is definitely. This one actually seems to be okay. Oh, it's still too wet. Okay, I have to wait for a second there. What about that? That seems dry. Well, then let's start with a moment I always find quite sad, because you do the writing and then you destroy it. But it's time to look at the bastard brush. Yes, sad but true. Okay, well then, there is that moment you've all been waiting for, but the thing is, not everyone seemed to be absolutely clear on what this is all about. Of course, I'm talking about the Tardif test. The Tardif test, I can tell you, is just a bit of fun and a homage to Nathan Tardif, the founder of Noodler's Ink, who has a tendency to flick ink on pages with a flick knife. Apparently that's why it's called a flick knife. And he always does it. We just thought that, you know, as a tribute to this man who has made so many inks available to us and has given us so many, you know, pens that are affordable and perform pretty well, flex nibs for affordable prices, we should do something. So hence the Tardif test. Now he's also a patriot. He loves the US. So, you know, there you have it. Time for the Tardif test. So the land of the free and the home of the brave, are your stars still so bright? Does your banner still wave? Then there is, of course, you know what? Let's just do that second pass right there while we're waiting. Then there is, of course, the eyedropper of death. Okay, and while that is going on, here's another moment I know that a lot of you are waiting for. The Bruin benchmark. So, I would say we have some interesting tests here. I'm going to remove some excess water. And a lot of excess water. Right. I think we should do... No, don't worry, I'm not going to do another test. I should just do a scorecard for this ink. So I'll start working on that. I'm just putting the cap on the vial there. Okay, so the first thing we have is cleaning. And since I only just got this ink, I honestly don't know. Now, usually speaking, blue inks are not the worst to clean out, and well, I mean, there's one exception, but I won't go into that. I've just praised Nathan. As you can see, this ink doesn't like water too much. I mean, this word is gone. This is, well, this has suffered, let's put it that way. This has definitely suffered, so I'm not expecting a lot of problems with cleaning. I think the ink will just disappear before water. Then we have bleed through. We'll have to look at this paper and the other paper I'm using in a second to make a decision on that. Then we have color. Well, color, I would say, is a nice, vibrant, dark blue. I don't think anyone will disagree that this is in fact a blue. Shading, well, I would say shading is very good, especially for blue. I think this is very impressive. Okay, then we have flow. Flow is good. There were some issues with the flex pen, as you've seen, but I think in general flow was very good. We have feathering. I can't really say anything until I've used the cheaper copier paper. Drying time. Well, I would say that is fairly long. When you have a look at those 6mm, I mean, this is still wet. I am going to make a third pass before I forget. But, I mean, this is a wet ink. I think that's one of the reasons people like it so much. Waterproofness. As you can see, bits of it are still there. So I'm going to say it's poor to okay. Alright. So the tests. We have checked out the water tests. What can we conclude from the Tardif test? Well, I think that gives you a very nice idea of the shading of this ink, which goes from a fairly dark blue to a lighter blue. Quite nice. The brown benchmark has shown that you can splatter the ink around quite a bit. Okay, now I think we should move to another paper, cheap copier paper. Whoops, which I have right here. And I'll just grab my fine pen, and then it's clobbering time. Fine. Fine, have it your way. Jeez. Fine. Have it your way. Medium. Fine. Let's be medium. Why fine? I is broad. No, wait. Yeah. Scusi? Italic. I'll just put some more ink into the feed. And I will put the cap on that vial because I'm afraid I'll knock it over. You are italic. I am flexi. There we go. Maybe some fat writing. And finally, well, I guess we've done everything. But let's do some extra flex where we try to push the pen to the limits. But that's a surprise. Okay, I think we can conclude safely that Parker, Penman Sapphire and Noodler's Flex pens are not the best of buddies, because this ink really railroads like there's no tomorrow. Or, of course, an ink doesn't really railroad, but it makes the pen railroad. Okay, so what can we conclude here? Well, the writing seems to be okay, but once you come down to flexi writing, it starts to feather like crazy. Same goes for the calligraphy, 6mm nib, very wet, feathering. Flexing, feathering. I wouldn't be surprised to see some bleed through here. Oh, look. And you even see bleed through with the broad nib. So bleed through is an issue on cheaper paper. What about Rhodia paper? So I haven't seen any feathering here, so I think it's safe to say that you will see that mainly on cheaper paper. Bleed through there, but these are 3 passes with a 6mm nib. Bleed through of the brown benchmark, I think. But for the writing, not at all. Okay, so what do we conclude? Bleed through on cheap paper. I should probably say lightweight paper or something. Well, just say cheap paper and you know what I mean. Feathering, again, on cheap paper. Okay, now I'm going to do a comparison with another ink, but before that I'd like to show you something. I can imagine that there may be some people out there who say, yeah, well, this whole Penman, is it actually the real thing? Well, my dear corresponding friend Ed still has a bottle of this stuff. This is the original Penman Sapphire. I'm sorry about the letter blocking this, but believe me, it says the ink is Parker Penman Sapphire. The Penman line was discontinued around 2000, blah blah blah. Now, what I'd like to show you is this bit here at the end. This is Ed's writing, and these little dashes, let me use the Tardive probe here. That sounds very wrong. Anyway, this is Ed's writing, and this is what I did. I did this with the broad nib, and I did this with the medium nib. And there's going to be some disturbance through the camera because of the light, etc. But I can tell you, looking at this with mine own eyes, I am almost 100% certain that this is the same ink. Especially if you look at the medium lines, they go from light to dark just as these do, the exact same color. So I really think we are talking about the genuine article here. Just saying this because some of you, I don't know, may have been in doubt or something, I don't know. Alright, so the last thing to do is give a comparison of the Penman. Here we got the Penman, and I will do that with that flex nib, because it's just going to write whether it wants to or not. No pen will get the better of me. There we go, all prepped and ready. So we have Penman. I'm going to do this in print, that makes it a little easier for the pen than my corrupted cursive. Parker Sapphire. Oh, sorry, Penman Sapphire. I don't even know what I read, what I write. I don't know what I read either, but that's a whole different story. Okay, so here you get this. And then, Bill was kind enough to send me another ink that went along with the Penman ink. So he said, then you have a comparison. And that is by Private Reserve. And it is called American Blue. And he said that seems to be pretty much the same ink. Now, I don't know about you, but I would say, I just wrote Penman, so this is PR American, I can't take it anymore, Blue. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like Bill Cosby. I don't know about you, but I think that this is a very comparable ink, you see. That's more like Bill Cosby on acid, but it doesn't really matter. I think these two are extremely close. So, if you want Sapphire, clearly you cannot get it anymore, unless you get like pre-owned bottles or whatever. But Private Reserve American Blue seems to be extremely close to this ink. Even when it comes to the shading, I would say it's definitely Sapphire-like. So that would be an alternative if you cannot, get the Sapphire wherever you are. Okay, final words. A very nice intense dark blue to an extremely intense dark blue. Lovely shading, performs well. Probably not a good ink to use on copier paper, but if you have access to some nicer paper like this, I think this would be a very cool ink. But unfortunately it is discontinued, so even if you would like to get it, that's going to be very difficult. But, we have the alternative of Private Reserve American Blue, and that's all there's to it. So, Inkcyclopedia entry for a classic ink. This is now preserved for the world and for future generations. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.